Hey guys, welcome back. And since in the last episode the last episode of my series about the styles of how we experience reality, so there were styles of intuition, styles of feeling, styles of thinking, and styles of sensing. So it's a four-part series, and it basically describes that there are different ways within the perceiving functions, different preferences or attitudes within the perceiving preferences of how we make decisions and of how we gather information. And there's also different attitudes that our our perceiving functions take on. So our judging functions. So we make decisions differently based on the attitudes. So I would like to talk about these different styles. And since last week I spoke about the styles of thinking, I think it would be which was a judging function. Thinking is, whether it be introverted or extroverted thinking, it's a judging process, decision making process. So I think today I'd like to speak about a perceiving process. So I'd like to speak about the styles of sensation. So although not not everybody is a sensor as such. Like when they say that somebody is a sensor in the Myers-Briggs system, or that S in your four-letter code is literally just pointing to the cognitive functions that you use, and every single person uses sensation in somewhere in their stack. It just means that if you are an N or an intuitive, then you probably use that higher up in your cognitive stack, as opposed to someone who is an S. So they probably have it in the top two cognitive functions, which would be their strengths. So it would be their favorite way of doing things, favorite way of perceiving reality, since we're talking about a perceiving function. So sensation, let's talk about what is sensation. So sensation is, or sensing is basically taking in information through the five senses. So it is very in tune with aesthetics, tastes, and smells, and experiences the world through their physical bodies a lot, instead of in the concrete, as opposed to the abstract. So the types that use sensing in the top as their dominant functions are the ISTJ and the ISFJ. So these two types use it as their dominant function. And then the two types that use it as their parent or auxiliary or supporter function would be the ESTJ and the ESFJ. So yeah, depending on sorry, those are and then those are the ones that use it in an introverted attitude. Though there's also another four types that use it as an extroverted attitude, and dominantly the ones that use it dominantly as the extroverted sensing are the ESTPs and the ESFPs. So they definitely use it as a dominant function, extroverted sensing. And the ones that use it as their auxiliary function, the types that use it as their auxiliary function, extroverted sensing, this is, would be the ISTP and the ISFP. So yeah, any one of those 8 types use sensing in their first 2 functions. So that's usually where they tend to stay until they sort of mature, get older, and get more integrated into their personalities. So if it was all confusing what I said about like extroverted and introverted sensing, there are differences within these dichotomies. So they can be further broken down into these 2 attitudes that this way of perceiving the world or gathering information actually takes on. And so it can either be extroverted sensing or introverted sensing. And just like the other functions, this these attitudes tend to give certain characteristics to these mental processes. So, for example, extroverted sensing as a perceiving function is in the moment. It is perceiving its its environment. It's perceiving. It's taking in information, learning information. So that's why these are also learning styles. Um, it's perceiving the information in real time, and it's very quick to act. So all the extroverted functions are pretty quick. It's able to take on a lot of information at once. So extroverted intuition is very quick to pick up on sensory data and act on it as well. So they'll have a huge value for action over like analysis, for example. Um, extroverted sensation is all about being in the here and now, being present in the moment, all about just living life to the fullest, right? Like all SPs that I know, it's the SP personality types that have this as their dominant function. Extroverted sensing, that is. So the personality types that have this as their dominant function are SPs. So SPs, anybody with the letters SP will have this in their top stack of their function. For myself, for example, as an intuitive, I also use sensation. So I also use, like I said, everybody, we all the 16 personality types use sensation somewhere within their stack. But depending on which type, what your 4-letter code is, it'll be either extroverted or introverted, and that'll make up your personality and say different things about your personality. And the way that you use your information gathering through your 5 senses. So let's talk a little bit about introverted sensing, which is not a function that I have within my stack because I use extroverted sensing as my little inferior 3-year-old function. So it's not my strongest point, but it's definitely aspirational. But yeah, let me do my best to describe extroverted sensing, which is the other side of the coin, even though I don't have it within my stack. So introverted sensing is more about sort of collecting sensory information in the form of impressions, in the form of like memories. It's nicknamed memory often. These people have like these vast archives of information, and they tend to like keep things that have sentimental value, and they form these large impressions of an experience, a sensory experience, in order to sort of project or predict how a different experience is going to be in the future. So all SJ types use this in their top 2 cognitive functions, and these people tend to be quite traditionalist. Because these functions exist on polarities as well, you'll find that the people who use sensing will have a polarity or a inferior function as a way of balancing them out. So those who use so even intuitives, even if you're an ENFP, for example, and you might think that you don't have any relation to sensing whatsoever, you do. You have it in your inferior function stack. So what that means is this whole concept of introverted intuition, which is all about tradition, all about doing things the way they've always been done. It's all about looking at history and making sure that it does not like repeat itself, what we can learn from our history, and it's all about doing things in a methodical way. It's like, why should we change things if they work, so SI is usually all about like keeping order and keeping things, keeping values of the cultures, and just carrying on the history and just the stories, making sure that like that all that is preserved. So on these SJ types will always exist with the polarity of extroverted intuition, which also not sure if I did I did do styles of intuition, so you can check out my video about styles of intuition and understand how the intuitive functions actually show up for you. But they exist on a polarity, so anybody that is an SJ or uses introverted sensation or SI as their top functions will still have extroverted intuition pulling on it. So it'll be that sense of tradition and security and doing things the way they've always been done versus that other function of novelty and needing to shake things up, which is extroverted intuition. And this will constantly be a push and pull thing that balances us out as human beings. Same goes with extroverted sensing. Extroverted sensing exists on a polarity with introverted intuition. So all the SP types that use SE or extroverted sensing in their as their top function stack will always have those in their inferior functions. They'll always have introverted intuition, which is I've also explained in my last styles of intuition video, and that will also be a way to balance them out. So we all use all functions. It's just a matter of where they fall in our stack. Yeah, and so some other characteristics of introverted sensing is they'll be very they could be tend to be like very practical and not want to like shake things up. They tend to be very like good at archiving information and storing information. They tend to be the gatekeepers of all the archives, and they really value tradition and traditional holidays and various rituals and all of that, just keeping up with what our past has taught us. Whereas extroverted, so even though these are both styles of sensing, these are sort of physical, concrete, pragmatic ways of learning information, the attitudes really make them quite different. So they make them sort of look in different directions, and I think that's really cool, because once we can understand each other's functions and their polarities and how they show up for us and other people, we can start to appreciate the ways that other people learn and the ways that other people make decisions. So like, yeah, I'm an extroverted sensing user. I tend to be the one wanting to get things done like now. So it's like I see a stimulus or I hear a song, and that's when I get an idea, and that's working in conjunction with my introverted intuition. So I get an idea, like I hear a song, I immediately get want to get into action. Getting into action will usually stimulate my introverted intuition, because it's usually like when I'm doing yoga or just having a shower that I'll have these sort of insights. So these functions definitely work with each other, and yeah, I will still do a video about the polarities, but that is a little bit advanced. I will start to simplify a lot of this stuff as well, for those who don't know or understand the functions. But just to summarize, I was talking about styles of sensing, which is a perceiving function, a cognitive function, as described by Carl Jung, and his theory on the 8 cognitive functions that we use as human beings. So this is how these functions or these cognitive processes manifest in those types who use them in their top functions, in their conscious functions. I've not gone into shadow functions. Shadow functions are the functions that we do also use, but use unconsciously. So it's good to get to know what you come across as sort of deliberately. It's good to get to know your persona or your ego before you start going into the shadow, I think. So yeah, I hope this was informative, and I hope this made sense. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments, and I'll see you probably next week when I do my last judging function style video, which will be styles of feeling. Important feeling. Otherwise, till then, Ciao.